Hi everybody, it's Paula from Big Green Pen, and I'm here to talk to you about this week's blog and to recap it a little bit. I had an opportunity that I'm very grateful for. This has to have been one of my favorite blogging projects over the time I've been blogging, which is a long time, as many of you know. And it really drew upon a point in my life that, in retrospect, changed so many things about my life and some of the choices I made. The blog was about ways that we can eliminate the stigma surrounding HIV, surrounding testing, surrounding people who are living with HIV. And one of the big takeaways for me was that I was very behind and outdated in the facts. I had the opportunity to interview Mark S. King for this blog. You can find him at marksking.com, My Fabulous Disease on Facebook, My Fab Disease on Twitter. There are facts I want to go over quickly. The facts you can read about in the blog, but one of the important ones is the fact that 1 in 8 people with HIV are unaware that they're HIV positive. That youth ages 13 to 24 accounted for more than 1 in 5 new HIV diagnoses in 2014. At the end of 2012, 44% of youth ages 18 to 24 years living with HIV did not know they had HIV. And another factor, I am at the stage in my life where a lot of my friends and peers are re-entering the dating world, which opens up a whole new set of questions about the choices they make, the people they are now choosing to be in relationships with. And even though it's easy to seem like I'm in kind of this midlife bubble, it is something that can affect my peers and the people I deal with. One of the kind of echoing themes going in my, hey Bill, in my head as I wrote this, I really didn't linger on it much in the blog. There was a lot of information to share, and I really wanted to focus on Mark and Mark's story. And let me just divert a minute and say how much I appreciate Mark's time and sharing his story. And he is a really, really, really fun person. We had a lot of hilarious email exchanges. Hopefully the blog finds the balance between fun and facts, but really had a great conversation. And I told him he has a supporter for life. I truly mean that. But was the fact that back in 1987, when I was a counselor on the Florida AIDS hotline, it was a difficult time in our nation. I was working for telephone counseling and referral services. I was a volunteer, but I was also a paid trainer and online coordinator. And we got the contract for the Florida AIDS hotline. If it had not been something that I fell into because it was my job, I don't think, honestly, at the time I would have embraced that task. But having done so, I had the opportunity to talk to people who were going through that first stage of how scared individuals were, how scared our nation was, how none of us really knew anything about what we were dealing with. And as I joke about in the blog, and it's true, I explained to hundreds of men I didn't know how to put a condom on before I had even had to use that information in my personal life. So it's kind of humorous, but hopefully it helped them stay safe at a time when that or abstinence were really the only options. But I did get tested myself. It's laughable what risk behavior I thought I had engaged in. But having been through the testing process was important to understand, again, what my callers were going through. It was not easy to get an HIV test in Leon County, Florida in 1987, 88. You had to go to the health department, meaning you had to get transportation. You had to talk to this physician you didn't know about your personal practices. You had to go back to get your results because no one trusted that you could get results by mail or phone without, if the results were that you were HIV positive without wanting to end your life. So I think at the time, I know I had to go back to get my results. So you had to think about who's going to, again, get transportation to go back, have the courage to go back. there were a lot of hurdles. Hey, Colleen. There were many hurdles to getting an HIV test then. It's so much easier now. Hey, Amy. Oh, that's cool. And it is National HIV Testing Day, which makes it a kind of cool intersection for this blog as well. But it's much easier now. And one of the important points that Mark asked me to make is that just get tested. So much easier now. And if you get tested, if you are positive, it is not a death sentence. There are so many other options right now for how you can live a happy and healthy life. He has been HIV positive for over 30 years. If you have a chance to go to the video that's embedded in my blog, he's talking with his friend Lynn about how when he first found out he was HIV positive, he lived his life in 3-year increments because no one thought you lived past that. And I love his outlook now. It's definitely, he's past that every 3-year plan and living joyfully, which is an important way for all of us to live, I think. Like I said, the prevention options have changed. There's now PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis. There's PEP, which is post-exposure prophylaxis. There are still a lot of acronyms in the world of dealing with HIV and public health. There were then. The ELISA test is stuck in my head from 30 years ago. I must have explained that to so many people, but there are things you can do to have a life with your partner, and that's one of the things I go into some detail in my blog about. Mark is now happily married, and because he is on prevention, which I learned is different than in prevention, because words matter, he has no virus in his body. He will always test positive because he has antibodies to the virus, but he has no detectable virus in his body. So they can choose to and pursue a happy relationship and keep his husband healthy, which is a big, big deal. There are such simple actions you can take. One of the things I talked about in the blog is I'm not positive anybody I hang out with right now is HIV positive. I did start thinking about that and reading a little more about statistics. And since I volunteer at a women's prison, you know, there are HIV is definitely an issue in the incarcerated population, but I don't know, and it doesn't matter. And I think it's actually a good thing if someone I know is HIV positive and doesn't feel like it makes a difference in our friendship, because it wouldn't. But I still feel like I can make a difference for the new population that doesn't remember how scared we all were in the 1980s when Rock Hudson died, when Magic Johnson was diagnosed. And I have had people telling me privately that they, as 20-somethings, don't talk about this. I know in urban areas of our state, especially among Black males who are having sex with other males, even if they engage in less risky behavior comparatively, they are still in a much larger pool of HIV positive people and run a much higher risk of getting infected. Is there something I can do? Is there some tweet I can send that may not reach one of those young men directly, but reaches one of their friends, that somehow encourages them to say, yeah, I can get tested. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's easy to do. It's not hard to find a place to do it. I don't have to drive 10 miles to the health department. Definitely nothing wrong with the health department, but I'm just saying there are other options. It's so much easier to do. And once you know your status, then you can make other decisions and you can go on living a joyful life. So it boils down to, can you have one simple conversation with one person in your life, or take one simple social media action? It can make a difference. It can make a difference and help people live healthy lives, help people keep other people in their circles safe. And I truly believe there is something that we all can do. I put a bazillion links in my blog for things you can do that have resources for the Act Against AIDS. So I'm just double checking the hashtags. For Stop HIV Together and the Stop HIV Stigma campaigns, it is the CDC's Act Against AIDS campaign. So that's where that was coming from. But we are all at a heightened level of awareness now after the Orlando Pulse nightclub shootings, and I think those of us who are allies need to make sure the people in our community, the LGBTQIA+, I hope I got that right, know that we support them and know that they can access testing, that they are accepted, that they can live happy, healthy lives, but we have to make it not a stigmatized thing for them to do. That's one of the, I went back and forth whether to include an Orlando segment in this blog, but how could I not? And what Mark said to me was that it made him go back to being that teased, beaten up sissy that he had been every day in elementary school, and no one wants that. This is 2016. We can do better. And if that episode in the Orlando shooting has made people in your life regress and feel like they can't be themselves, that they can't get tested, that they can't take advantage of so many resources out there, you can be the person who makes a difference and says, yes, they can. I encourage you to do that. I thank you so much for listening. Again, I'm at biggreenpen.com and would love for you to visit it, to visit the links, to visit Mark's various social media properties. Again, he's on Twitter at MyFabDisease. I love his explanation of why it's My Fabulous Disease, and I will encourage you to ask him. And the end of the story is he is a fabulous person, and I'm so excited to have been connected with him and to have had the opportunity to be entrusted with his story. When you're a blogger, I've written so many posts about myself. It's easy to feel self-centered. My blog, I think it was 2 weeks ago, was 73 things you need to know about me. I mean, I didn't even know 73 things about me. But the risk there is that I tell my own story wrong. And in being given this opportunity, it was the risk that I would tell his story wrong. And I know it was a gift to have been entrusted with helping to tell his story. It was a gift to have been entrusted with trying to make a difference in eliminating stigma. And to go back to that little room in 1987 where I was talking to all those men I didn't know, in retrospect, it was a gift to have been given at an early stage in this episode of our nation's life, the opportunity to learn myself and to hear their voices, to hear what it felt like. I'm happy in 2016 there's so many more options, and I think we can all be a part of making stigma go away. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to talking to you next Monday.